Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sam, and we're bad at watching movies.
But we're good at baking cherry chip loaves, being a bitch, and getting spritzed and passing out. Okay.
That guy is such a wiener. Are you kidding me?
Are we bad at watching movies?
In this episode, we'll be discussing 12 Dates of Christmas, an ABC Family Christmas movie.
Here at Bad at Watching Movies, we watch some of our favorite movies, good or bad. We talk about everything from scenes and characters, and we always have something to laugh about.
It's true. So the summary for this movie, at least on IMDb, is a story that follows Kate, a young woman who, after a horrible blind date on Christmas Eve, wakes up to find she's reliving the same day and date over again.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay. They just make it seem like some big disaster happens, but like she's the disaster.
She is literally the disaster. Like
Yeah.
the first date is her fault. This makes it sound like it's like not her fault, but it absolutely is.
It's your fault.
Yeah, it is. There are about 1 million characters in this movie, so we're going to touch on about 5 of them now, and then later we'll kind of go over some of the other ones that pop in and out throughout the movie. But I think we're going to hit on the 5 main ones that really kind of are throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Starting with Kate, who is played by Amy Smart.
You're kind of Amy, and you're kind of smart.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm literally her, and she is me.
You're a smart Amy.
Mm-hmm. She's the worst character in this entire movie.
She's a Scrooge character where you're not supposed to love her at the beginning, but then by the end you're like, okay, she's learned her lesson.
But she's still the worst.
Yeah, she's got some stuff to work through.
Yeah. So we see her character development like throughout the whole thing, if you want to call it that. I don't even know if she develops at all, but
she learns a little. Yeah, and she's been in what are some of the other movies? Butterfly Effect.
I have no idea.
She's in that, and she's in that other rom-com-y movie, but I can't remember what it is, with Ryan Reynolds, where he's like, yeah. Anyway,
I don't
Just
know.
Friends. Got it.
Just Friends. Okay.
Yeah,
I
was
we were
like
talking about that when we were hanging out with some of our theater friends. Like,
yeah. And then we have, okay, I'm gonna mess up his name. Mark Paul Gosselaar. So he's Miles Delphine, who is the love interest in this story. He's the blind date mentioned. He plays Zach in Saved by the Bell, if you ever watched Saved by the Bell. So, and he is still looking just as good as he did then, maybe even better.
He is cute, guys.
So,
then the next kind of the other love interest-ish in the movie is Jack Evans, played by Benjamin Aries. He's fine.
Yeah. He's cute. He's nice. He's her ex-boyfriend that she's obsessed with.
Yeah, very obsessed with.
Yeah.
Like, very obsessed with.
Then we have Mary Long as Sally. Sally is Kate, the main character's, her father's new wife.
Mm-hmm. So stepmom situation.
Yeah, kind of stepmom.
Yeah.
Because her mother died recently, like last few years or so. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And then last kind of most important character is the dad of Kate, Mike Stanton, played by Peter McNeil. He's a good character. He's loving. He's a good dad. You know, they have those moments of like talking about the dead mom, and you know, he's kind of there throughout the whole thing, kind of helping her through everything. So I think I like Mike.
I like Mike. I like Sally most of the time.
Sally has her moments where I don't love her because she's really weird in some points, but she's kind of like, she's trying. I think the writers wanted her to be like the story, like keeping the story going and saying certain things. The dad's the same way.
Yeah.
Where they're like, they kind of touch on like, well, you're not going to be able to redo this tomorrow kind of a thing. And even though she's
going to relive the same day a million times.
Anyway, that's not a bad thing, but yeah. So those are kind of the characters. So we have Kate, we have Miles, we have Jack, who are kind of our main 3, and then we have Sally and Mike, who are kind of the parents. And then as we go on, we'll go ahead and introduce
all the other characters.
So many characters. Oh my gosh, these notes were hard. So jumping right in, the first thing that I noticed is they start off with like a 12 Days of Christmas remix kind of song.
Very more like poppy.
But it's not, because they like have another chorus or verse of another song also, so it's not the traditional 12 day.
Yeah.
I don't know who
a
sings
medley
this.
mashup kind of
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I don't know who did it.
I should have looked it up, but
it's a generic ABC Family Christmas movie. They're going to start with some poppy version of a classic Christmas tune.
yeah, we're like flying over New York.
Yeah.
We're seeing like Central Park and all the ice skating rinks and like all the shops, and people are looking through the window. A classic
Christmas. It's Christmas,
movie
yeah.
beginning. And we're off to an office party.
Yeah. I honestly, every time I watch this movie, I forget that there's an office party at the beginning, because the rest of the movie, you get really comfortable with all the settings and people because it repeats over and over again. But this part of the movie doesn't repeat ever. So I always forget that it even happens.
Right. So yeah, they're starting at a office party. She's drinking some green liquid.
I don't know what she's drinking.
The friend, McKay, how do you say it? Miyoko is drinking some green liquid. She's flirting with some guy, or he's flirting with her, and she's really not.
The purple sweater guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's like, he's just like trying to pick up on her. He's just being really awkward and weird, and then like goofy dancing. And I forgot that guy was a character. And then I rewatched it this last time, and I was like, he's annoying.
I tried to figure out if he had a name. For like 5 minutes, I went on the internet. And
I don't know.
I don't think he's not a big part of the story. Then Kate, we pan to Kate. She's leaving a voicemail for Jack.
Yeah, because she's obsessed, even though they haven't been together for a while now.
How long do they say?
It might be a year or 6 months. It's like not recent, like as in like just happened, but like within the last year, I think.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's been a year.
Okay.
Because we know they were together the previous Christmas, I'm pretty sure, but not this Christmas.
So she's calling Jack. She leaves him a voicemail and asks if he wants to meet up.
Yeah, and she tries to use the dog as an excuse. She's like, I haven't had a Christmas or like seen Max the dog in a long time. You could bring him and I could see you. And she's trying to use that as like her way of getting to see him.
Yeah.
And then she opens her Secret Santa gift, which is just like a Nicholas Sparks book.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know if I like this. And she was going to give it to him. And then she asked the people in the office, like, do you think he would like this? And the purple sweater guy goes, yeah, totally. And then he's like, no, get him beer. And then some other person in the background goes, yeah, beer. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, beer. And then, so they kind of leave. Her friend and her, Miyoko and Kate, leave the work party.
Yeah.
And they're walking down the street. We find out that Jack is Kate's ex-boyfriend. That's kind of the moment we find out. And that's when she was leaving the awkward voicemail for. And I have a Miyoko quote that says, you holiday dialed your ex-boyfriend. It's like drunk dialing without the alcohol.
That's actually very accurate. She's spot on.
Yeah.
Miyoko is the most sensible person in this whole movie. And I just feel like she deserves more.
Absolutely. She has some like sad lines later on about her not like having love and everyone being in relationships, and everyone complains about the fact that they have relationships.
Right.
And you do feel kind of bad for her later on.
Yeah, because that's all she really wants.
Yeah.
Because it's a rom-com and apparently everyone has to have a couple.
Yeah.
A couple, so.
And then they go off to find Jack the perfect gift to bring him when Jack and Kate meet up later on.
Yeah.
So then we find out that Kate has a blind date with Sally's godson.
Yeah.
Remember, Sally is kind of the stepmom, the new mom in town.
New mom in town.
But it doesn't sound like she likes Sally.
No, she calls her his lady friend, but they're married and they've been married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Miyoko even points that out. She's like, they've been married, like they love each other. Like, again, Miyoko's being sensible and is like kind of like hinting towards like, hey, maybe give Sally a chance. And Kate just hates her. So.
Yeah, Kate just sounds weird. And it does sound like the hope is for that tonight with Jack is to get back together. That's why she's buying the sweat or the gift and going to meet up with him.
Yeah, she buys like a really expensive cashmere sweater
on
a guy that she's not with anymore to maybe win him back, but not knowing if that's even feasible. What?
Yeah, nothing says Christmas like cashmere.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I think Miyoko breaks off because she's like, I'm not helping you with this. Like, as a friend who needs you to be more sensible, like, this is a bad idea. Kate's like, fine, like, I'll shop on my own. She's walking through the department store, and I feel like this is where the movie really kicks into high gear. She comes down the escalator. There's people singing the 12 Days of Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I always remember the, like, higher harmony where there's like,
Yep. Yep, because you hear that about 15 more times for the movie.
And then the lady who works there, she's all dressed up for Christmas in like a little costume. And she's, going through the perfume aisle. And the woman has a spray bottle, and you know it's going to happen. But here's the weird thing. She takes her time to like aim it and everything, and she sprays it right on her face. On her eyeballs.
Usually they put it on like a little like strip of like paper, or they like put it on your arm, but they don't spray you in the face.
And even if they
it.
were to spray you, why would they go right here, like on your eyeball?
I don't know.
And it's not even like accidental quick. It's like slow. Like she takes her time. I was watching it today. Yeah, I'm going to get you. And she gets her. Kate falls to the floor and she passes out.
Yeah. And we get one of my favorite lines from
in a movie ever.
Any movie. And we quote this all year long.
Yeah.
All the time. I spritzed you and you passed out.
I spritzed you and you passed out.
It is amazing.
Such
a good line. She kind of wakes up and she's surrounded by like two people, and that lady leans over her, and that's when she says the line, "I spritzed you and you passed out." She leaves the mall, and then she runs into a guy who's struggling with lights.
Yeah, and she's like, what is going on with this guy? Why is he putting up lights? I don't know if I have time for him.
Yeah, but remember him for later on in the movie because he does come back.
Every person she encounters has something to do with what she does later because, again, she's repeating the same day. So.
Yeah. And then she gets back to her apartment complex and the elevator's broken. Remember that as well. Reoccurring thing. So she has to take the stairs up, and she's kind of like, she gets up to the top of the stairs, and she's kind of like sneaking in.
Yeah.
And she like just is about to get in her door, and her neighbor comes out, Mrs. Frumpkin.
I love Mrs. Frumpkin.
She is one of the sweetest ladies, but Kate is an absolute bitch
she
to
was
her.
so mean to her. She brings her a cherry chip loaf that she just made today.
Yep.
Gives it to her, and she's like, oh, how's your day? Like, what are your Christmas plans? Like, just trying to make conversation. And you can tell, like, obviously Kate snuck in because she didn't want her to, like, stop her, because she's probably that kind of little bit annoying neighbor sometimes who just is really into your business. But she's really nice. She's so nice. And she just, like, slams the door on her. She's like, thanks, bye.
Yeah. And she, like, chucks the cherry chip loaf when she gets into the house. It happens a couple of times in the movie, but she literally throws it onto her couch, and you're like, oh, are you good? But it's so sweet because when she walks into her apartment too, Mrs. Frumpkin, she's such a bitch to her, and Miss Frumpkin's just like, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
So that makes me,
so it just makes you hate her even more.
Yes. So she gets into her apartment, and she has a message, a voicemail.
On her home phone.
On her home phone.
So it's old. She still has a home phone, and she uses it for just like casual calling. Mm-hmm. But she also has a cell phone, so it's unnecessary.
I didn't think she had a cell phone, but she does.
Oh, she does.
And she thinks it's from Jack, but it's from Miles, her blind date. It's the blind date that Sally set up for her. Sally is her stepmom.
Yeah.
That's Miles.
It's good to keep track of who's who because it gets crazy.
So many people. She goes to meet Miles, and my note was, and he is cute.
He's very cute. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned, it's Zach from Saved by the Bell. So a little aged up and no more bleached hair. The brown suits him nicely. He's wearing a cute sweater. All is well. When Kate first enters the place, she's approached by this nerdy guy with glasses. Mm-hmm. And he's like, Phyllis? And she's like, I'm not Phyllis. So that's important because this character comes up again later. We get to know him as Toby. But the sad thing is his date doesn't show up that night, as far as we know.
Yeah.
So
I don't think she shows up ever, but that's a spoiler for
Poor
sure.
Toby.
And so she goes to sit down next to Miles, or across from Miles, and he has ordered her a lager, which, if you don't know, is a type of beer. And she says, I don't like beer or anything carbonated. But freaking later on in the movie, she's drinking champagne, so it's just like, I don't get it.
No issue. So
and they start having a little small talk.
Yeah, they try to have a little small talk. It's not too bad. He calls her Katie, and she doesn't like that, and she's like, "Oh, that's because Sally is a bitch, and she hates me, and she's trying to set me up, and blah blah blah." And she told you to call me that.
Right.
But also, Kate's fully distracted during this. Like, she is on her phone the whole time while he's trying to like get to know her and like, how are you doing? Just like the casual, like, hey, this is a first date. Let's just try to figure out, who are you? What do you like? And she's just on her phone the whole time because she's trying to schedule her meeting with Jack.
Yeah.
And they really don't get far. And she gets a
No.
phone call on her phone, and it's Jack. And she's like, oh, sorry, I have an emergency. Something came up. And of course, like, Miles is mad. He's like, wait, we had a date planned. But we do need to say this.
Mm-hmm.
How are there so many blind dates? Like, I think 2 is a lot of blind dates in the same bar on Christmas Eve, because on Christmas Eve I usually have plans, and I know not everyone does, but like,
But no one in this
what?
movie has plans.
no,
We
no
find
one.
out that everyone is just like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. It's just like, do you have families? Do you do anything on Christmas Eve, or you just sit
Yeah.
at home and hope that?
that a stranger's gonna randomly entangle you in their life, because I guess she will.
Yeah. And that happens a lot in this movie. So yeah, she gets a call, and Miles is obviously very upset, and he storms off, kind of leaving her alone
Yeah.
at the bar.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I'll meet up with you again later tonight, right, for dinner at my dad's, because that was the plan. Dinner
Yeah.
with Dad and Sally and Miles. I don't think he's coming.
No.
She was kind of really mean to him.
Yeah.
So she goes to go meet Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And she does. He's
Yeah.
there. He approaches. Jack's pretty cute. He's just like seeing how you're doing. You can tell that like he is not ready to fall back in love with her, but she's ready to fall right back in love with him.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, like, where's the dog? And out comes a woman walking the dog.
Yep.
Nancy.
And we meet Nancy. And Nancy's not a big part in this movie, but she is kind of the driving factor
Yeah.
behind a lot of Kate's motivation to do certain things. Like, it's a lot
Yeah.
Nancy this, Nancy that with
Yeah.
we find out later some things later that we'll bring up. But yeah, she's like in the movie for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
basically.
And so we find out Nancy is Jack's new girlfriend and that he likes her a lot, that it's very serious. And so Kate obviously is kind of upset, but she takes the dog and like goes upstairs and is like, I guess this is like my night tonight. It's just going to be shitty. Merry Christmas. But then she goes and she does go see her dad and Sally.
Mhm.
She goes to dinner because she said that she would. Miles is not there, and Sally's like, yeah, he said that you left for another guy.
Which she did.
Yeah, it's
which
true.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go to their house, and and the dad and Kate kind of have a sweet moment about how, because Kate's like, you're replacing mom with Sally, like, she's not my mom, like, I don't. And so her dad's like, I can't ever replace your mom. And it's this really sweet moment, but God, Kate is such an asshole.
Yeah, she's really mean to Sally, like, all the time. And like, her dad's like, yeah, we're not replacing her. Like, I just want like some love in my life. It's nice to
Yeah.
have her. You would, if you gave her a chance, you'd probably like her too.
And we end the night, and Kate says she'll apologize to Miles in the morning because Sally is clearly kind of upset. And Sally, very ominously, says, you blew your chance. You can't go back now.
Yeah.
You blew your chance. You can't go back
Who
now.
would say that though? Like, if that's obviously to set up this whole plot line of, well, guess what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, I don't.
But she
No.
goes home, passes out alone with her dog Max, because she at least gets to keep the dog for Christmas break, which is nice.
Which is fun.
And then she's watching, like, there's like an infomercial on, and it's like a partridge brooch.
Yeah.
And we see this like a million times as well, because it is like the Kickstarter oftentimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the clock rewinds, and we go back, and she wakes up on the floor in the department store, and our favorite line is said again.
First of all, that's like every single time. Yep. I spritzed you and you passed out.
And here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a remake of Groundhog Day? Yes.
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 Yes. And Kate kind of starts to freak out.
Yeah, she's like, what? No, this is a dream. She doesn't know what's going on. I would be very confused. Like,
Yeah.
wait. She's like, I saw you, to the old guy who kind of helped her up, to the lady who spritzed her and made her pass out.
Yeah.
She's like, what is going on here? This is strange. And she kind of storms off and is like, hey, what do I do next?
And there's a lot of these little things in the movie too that we should touch on. I didn't write all of them down, But they have kind of the like really cute ways to tell you like what day it is. So this day I wrote down so it's 2 turtle doves and it's like kids in little outfits.
Yeah, little bird outfits.
And then at one point, like later in the movie, there's like the 9 ladies dancing, and then there's like 6. There's the kids in the hats,
geese.
the geese.
Yeah.
So they have like cute little moments of like it kind of tells you what day they're on. So that's a really fun part of the movie. I
do like that. Yeah, it's fun to be like, oh, I caught it, and most of them are pretty obvious, especially like the birds because those are like the easy ones to like do. But they get a little more creative with some of the ones. Like I like the ladies dancing because it's actually just like women in a conga line.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, those women are getting down. So she goes to her apartment. She has her friend with her this time, Miyoko, and she passes the light guy like she did the day before. She gets to her apartment. The elevator is still broken. We've seen this before.
She's mean to her neighbor again, but and Miyoko calls her out on it too. She's
Absolutely,
like not very
does.
nice to her, and she's like, "Oh, it's not a big deal." I just want Miyoko to get a happy ending. I want a movie about her.
I want a
movie.
She should have been. I think we've said this before when we watched the movie. It should be her movie, Miyoko.
Yeah.
Kate,
but you can't really go anywhere with someone who's already flawless. You know,
it's always a blonde white woman who's the head of these.
And usually they dye it blonde. They're illegally blonde, if you will. I hate myself.
I do too. So she's rude to Mrs. Frumpkin. Also, at one point, I wrote this down. I wrote Rumkill instead of Frumpkin in my notes. So same cherry chip loaf. She slams the door. Miyoko's like, that was rude. And she chucks the cherry chip loaf again. It's horrible. Again, it's like,
be nice.
Why are you chucking?
Even if you're not going to like it, then give it away at the next party. You're literally going to your dad's later tonight. Bring it. Mm-hmm. Easy.
And Kate is like freaking out to her friend. Miyoko's like, oh gosh, girl, you really need a day off.
Yeah.
Kate realizes that since she's repeating the same day, she can kind of do whatever she wants. So she gets into this really fitting purple dress.
Yeah.
And that's how she meets Jack.
Yeah, so I feel like she thinks of it as like, oh, I'm getting a second chance to make things right with Jack. And it's like, girl, no. Like, come on. It's so you can make things right with Miles and literally everyone else because you're horrible.
Yeah. And so she goes and meets Miles for their blind date like the day before.
Yeah.
And I don't like this part, but she gets really close to him when they're sitting across and goes, do you recognize me?
Yeah, it's like they're in kissing distance.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, girl, you have no interest in this man and you're going to blow him off and you're about to do that. Like she gets so close to his face. Oh, yeah, it's weird. And then essentially their date doesn't really go any better. I would say it probably goes worse than the last time because he says something about his wife and she's like, wait, a wife? And she goes off on him and is like, no one, like Sally didn't say you had a wife. And he's like, well, Sally didn't say that you had like an ex-boyfriend that you were still like interested in and all this other stuff. And so they just like, they part ways and it's not good.
No. Yeah, she gets the call from Jack like last time, and she basically was like, oh yeah, my place, yeah, for sure, and then ends up leaving in a huff because she thinks Jack has a wife, and she actually says my boyfriend.
Yeah,
I'm going to meet with my boyfriend instead of like my ex.
To dig it in a little
deeper. And then Jack shows up to the meeting spot like the day before. She's wearing her tight purple dress with just a little like shawl over it. And mind you, this is New York City.
In the middle of winter.
In the middle of winter. So like December 24th.
Yeah.
Because we know it's Christmas Eve.
It's cold.
So, I don't know, 10 degrees.
Yeah. Freezing, very cold.
And she's in this like tight I mean, she looks great, but she's a little too cold.
Yeah. And it doesn't really win him back. It doesn't do much. And she's like, well, what about like me? And she knows about Nancy at this point, but then she realizes, oh, are you going to propose to her at the cabin? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And so from here on out, when she relives the days, she knows that he is planning on proposing to Nancy. And she takes Max inside. And she's bummed. I think it's important to note just before the meeting with Jack, she did get a phone call from her dad because he's like, oh, I heard that something didn't go well with your date and he's not coming anymore. And then she has Sally get on the phone and Sally's like, yeah, his wife is dead.
Yeah. So she actually knows that before she sees Miles again the next day.
Yeah.
So
she's like, oh, I feel so bad. And it's like, it's the first time that she realizes that, oh, I was shitty, which was good. It's like small baby steps. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
I was bad.
whatever.
I was
Doesn't
an
change
ass.
my opinion. Kate and Max eat cherry loaf in bed.
She's
And
eating it.
She's eating it in bed, and then she starts to put it on the floor, and then Max starts to go for it, and then she goes, no, leave it, and still puts it on the floor, and Max doesn't go after it.
He's
I'm
so good.
sorry,
He's
but
so good.
how did
That's-
you train your dog so well?
Yeah. It's a movie dog.
So, woo, it's 11:59 again.
Here we go.
The TV turns on, Max starts to bark, and the time goes backwards.
And guess what? I spritzed you and you passed out.
Hell yeah. And then Kate yells, no. And this particular day, she decides to go to the doctors.
She's like, something is wrong with me.
She tells him she has a brain tumor.
Yeah, she thinks she has a tumor. And he's like, no, it's okay. This part's weird to me because he's just like, it's just holiday anxiety. And he like thinks he's cracked the code and is like, well, it's just because you're anxious and like you don't want anything to change. And he's like kind of right, but it's like she is reliving the same day. And he really just like rubs it off like there's nothing going on. You're just anxious. Which I don't know, is just weird that he like so quickly jumped to this conclusion. And then she's like, well, then what do you want me to do? And he's like, just like try to take it easy. And then he's like, and I'll give you some of these. He literally prescribes her pills, not fully understanding what's going on.
I forgot about that.
And I was like, that's kind of weird.
Then she goes and finds Jack. And he's it's like throughout the movie, she meets with Jack earlier and earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So, like, this point, he's kind of, like, just gotten home from, like, it looked like Christmas shopping. He was, like, walking into his building. She's so weird because, like, I feel like if I were reliving the same day, I would not be so open to just, like, tell people, like,
Talk to people about it.
Like, I know that you're going to do this thing tomorrow that you don't know you're going to do tomorrow because you haven't.
People are going to think you're crazy.
People
you
are going
gotta
to think
kind of,
you're.
like, sense it out first,
Yeah, so she goes up to him and says, I know you're going to propose. And he goes, what the fuck? How do you know I'm going to propose? And then, but then he asks her, what do you want? And then
Oh my God.
the worst part of the movie happens where she goes, what do I want? And the music changes. She sits on like a step and she just like pours her heart out. And it is just like, she says, I want what you and Nancy have, and sits on a step. Goes from being like, oh, you're getting engaged, da 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 da, to
what do I want? The way she says it too, and it's like
so bad.
One, the monologue's too dramatic, and two, it just is taking place way too early on in the movie. Like, I feel like that's a realization you have later on, but that's not meant to be her big realization, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just like
Where
you
do
kind
we
of
go from here?
you're left going, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
What do I want? Oh, and then when she parts with Jack, she's like, oh, what time do you buy the ring? So that way the next time she can meet him when he's getting the ring.
She's really not doing too much to like hide the fact that she's like reliving the same day. I feel like a lot of these type of movies, like people are very quiet about it.
And you'd think she would get used to it by the fourth time and be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, maybe I need to just like play it cool now. But nope.
So Kate goes back to the bar. What is the name of the bar? Nick's. Thank you.
Because Sally recommends it.
Yeah, that is like probably like half the movie is in Nick's. It feels like
at the bar. Yeah.
So she goes to the bar, but she meets Miles early because remember she met up with Jack early, so she just kind of goes to the bar after that. It seems like, and I think he's there because he wants to order food before she was supposed to arrive.
Yeah, he wants to look good on his date, and she calls it. She's like, oh, are you eating first before your date? Because she doesn't tell him who she is. She just kind of approaches him and is like, oh, he gets here early.
Yeah.
Okay, he's having a beer, and he's ordering mozzarella sticks. And they have like a really sweet, genuine moment where he doesn't know that it's her, and they're just kind of like, oh, we do this thing that's in common where we eat before we go to the thing. Oh, we want to share mozzarella sticks. We both really like mozzarella sticks. And they kind of start like hitting it off, and it's actually really cute. And she still just like dips.
Yeah, but no, we have talked about this one moment
Oh,
where where Miles is talking about his wife, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, oh, I guess I should say my late wife, which then means that she is passed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kate just goes, I did not know she died. And he was like, it's okay.
It's
We
all right.
just met.
Yeah.
He was like, we just met.
Yeah.
It'd be like me going like, oh my God, I didn't know your grandpa died. If we had just met each other, you'd be like, you don't know
There's
me.
no way you would have known.
So anyway, so that was just a very interesting.
She just cannot get it through her head that other people are not also reliving the same day.
Yeah. And then we find out that his wife died because she was cleaning the gutters when he wasn't home.
Yeah.
And she fell, and we don't know like the details, but he was about a half an hour too late.
Yeah.
Is kind of what we find out.
It's really sad. It's very, and then he says like, oh, I know it's like a Lifetime movie or something like that. And she kind of chuckles, and it's like, yeah, this is also, I mean, ABC Family Movie is essentially a Lifetime movie. I went there, and now we know the story.
Yeah. And I have in bold letters, Kate is so weird.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Well, because she leaves. She's gonna leave, and she's like, "Oh, if your date doesn't show up later, which is supposed to be her,
Yeah.
like it might be because she's not over her ex, and also might be that she like ate some bad food or something at her office party, and that's why she can't be there." And he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever. What's your name?" And she's like, "I'm gonna stay a mystery," and she leaves.
Oh my God. Yeah. So then, so she leaves. She gets home, and I think maybe the timeline is further out than when she got home.
Yeah.
Back when Miss Frumpkin was handing her the loaf, because it is now on her doorstep.
Which is so nice. Like I feel like she probably waited as long as she could to like present it in person, and then she's like, I guess she's not coming home tonight, and like, just put it on her doorstep. But this is a time where Kate is kind of like, oh, I need to be a better person.
Yeah.
So she picks it up and she knocks on Miss Frumpkin's door and is like, hey, I wanted to thank you. And she's like, oh, and she kind of starts talking up a storm. And then the one thing that you would never want any of your neighbors to ever do is she's like, come on inside.
And she drags her inside.
Yeah.
And her apartment is so cute. It's all decked out
It's
in Christmas.
beautiful.
And it's like, we were talking about this like when we were watching the movie, that that New York apartment it's like
It's
a
gotta
couple
be so
bedrooms. It's gotta be a
expensive.
few mil
Yeah.
for that to like rent it out.
And
It
even
has
Kate's
to be,
like, it's small, but she has bedrooms, like a bedroom. It's not just a studio.
Yeah.
And in New York City, like, whoa.
So what do they do for jobs? Because I might need to look into that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they start baking together, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
And so she like bakes a bunch of. We find out that Miss Frumpkin bakes a bunch of cherry chip loaves for her family and her neighbors and stuff. And that's kind of what she does during the holidays. And she said she was going to make about like 25 to 30.
Yeah.
Which is so much fun. And so we have these funny moments. Mrs. Frumpkin is one of those characters that's very like quick, witty.
Yeah.
She has those like one-liners. It's very similar to the grandma from Halloween Town, I feel like.
Where there's just little moments
where
where you're
there's
like, yeah.
one-liners that you chuckle.
Mhm.
Makes you like chuckle a little bit.
I have a feeling I know which one you're going to talk about because it's really good. Is that what she says?
Well, it says Mrs. So she sees Kate holding like a bunch of utensils, and she goes, "Not at home in the kitchen, are we?" And that just makes me laugh. I think that might be the only one I wrote down.
Oh
But
my gosh. I have a couple things.
Okay,
this.
go ahead.
Well, just because after that part, it reminded me that then she's like, do you know how to bake? And she's like, no. And then she's like, okay, well, then you need to get the sugar and flour and butter and this, and you mix it and you do this. And she's like, okay, wait, what? And she's like, do you know what sugar and flour are?
It's just
She's
like she's
yes.
so funny in those one-liners.
She's so good.
Yeah.
And then Kate, like, they kind of open up to each other a little bit. And Kate is like, well, I like really care about my reputation. And this is the line that I love that she says that's kind of quippy is, reputations are just history in rumor form. You can change it.
Yes.
I love that. I love it.
It's very similar to Debbie Reynolds' line in Halloween Town, where it's like being
normal is vastly overrated.
That line reminds me. They're would
similar
be
because
friends.
it's like it's kind of like a don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
In different forms of like you need to just it's okay to change and you need to change for the better and not care so much about your reputation. Boom.
Can we get a spin-off of Grandma Aggie and
Frumpkin
Don't
and
you
Cromwell.
think that
Frumpkin and Cromwell.
Don't you think that they would get along so well?
Oh, they would.
Like they would be best
and
friends.
they could bake. Oh, she could have a bakery. And then but it's like a potion bakery. So she like Aggie does the magic and she does the baking and they're like baked goods that like heal you or like make you stronger.
I love that.
It's gonna happen.
All right, some network picked that up. Yeah, so they end up making a cherry chip loaf together, and it cuts to the end of the night. They're eating it together, and she goes, "Oh, it's really dry." And Miss Frumpkin gives her secret recipe, which is this honey from a local farm or something. And she said, "This is my secret recipe," and she gives her the jar of honey to take home.
Which is just so sweet.
Really, really sweet. She goes to bed and gets spritzed and passes out.
I spritzed it, you passed out.
Woo!
Wake up. This time, she gives Jim the sweater. Jim is the old guy that's always there when she wakes up.
Jim is also great. But we learn more about him later, but he is also a great character.
Jim's always there. He's always like, oh, great way to spend, or like quite a way to spend Christmas Eve. And
she does say this at one point later on. She goes, "Jim, thank you so much for always being there." Yeah. And I bet it's so weird for someone like that to hear be like, "I don't know you."
Yeah. So she gives the sweater to Jim because she's like, oh, whatever, I need to just like go and meet Jack and see him while he's buying the rings. And that's where we get, I believe, 4 calling birds. They're in like the bird cages.
Yep. 4 calling birds on either side of the jewelry store.
Which I always think is weird because I don't know why they didn't do the 5 rings right there. But
so they go, and she goes to the jewelry store. And she this is like the weirdest part. You just see the camera like pan over from her, and she's just like tucked in a corner. And Jack's like at the counter, like a normal like jewelry counter, and she goes, decisions.
Girl, you're
from
creepy.
The corner of the room.
You're creepy.
That's too much.
It's way too much.
Stop.
But she kind of like helps him or like talks to him, and she has a good conversation with him where he like kind of realizes like, okay, you're cool with this, and she's like, yeah, like I just want you to be happy, and so she's starting to come to terms with that whole bit, which I think is good. I'm glad that she is.
Do you want me to go postal?
Oh my gosh, I forgot that she says that. What, do you think I was gonna go postal? Like this 1999?
Oh my gosh, yes. It might be. So she finds the light guy, again, who's always there, talks to the girl with him, and she tells, the light girl tells, I'm going to call her a light girl till I reveal her name.
Okay,
the light girl. She tells Kate that he always makes her a snowflake out of lights for Christmas every year, which I want to say, because this is said later on in the movie and I don't love it, I think that is a really sweet thing to do for someone.
I think so too, and it's like a tradition, and so like at that point, it becomes a Christmas tradition, and I feel like you want to do those, and that's like that makes it special.
She gets annoyed by it. She says something later on that she's annoyed by it, and it just makes me upset because I'm like, if any dude would do that for me, I would be like ecstatic. I would never expect anyone to do that amount of work because putting up lights is not an easy thing. She seems kind of upset. And I, on accident, wrote her name as Lim, Lim. So anyway, her name is Lee, but I wrote her name as Lim. I did that a couple times with a few people. There's a lot of characters.
There are so many characters. I hope you're tracking at home, everyone, or in the car, or wherever you're listening.
And then so Kate asks if Lee wants to get a drink with her, and she says yes.
Yeah, which is just kind of random. She's like, oh, I think I've seen you before. Yeah, let's go get a drink. I hate my boyfriend, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, and they go, and they get a drink, but then it just cuts to them at her apartment. And they're getting wild. Like, they're
whipped cream.
Yep, they're spewing whipped cream in their mouths. They're jumping on the couch. And then, like, the neighbor upstairs or downstairs is like, turn that down. She's like shove it up your ear, mister.
Broom on the ceiling kind of thing. Yeah.
In walks Dad and Sally. And she's like, turns out the music. Lee's like, I better go. And this is a weird line for me where, like, the dad's like, hey, we used the key that you gave us. You never showed up, so we came in and we thought something was wrong. Glad you're okay. And then Lee's like, I probably should go. And she's like, bye, nice to meet you. And Sally just goes, I like your hair. And then she leaves. And it's just really weird. And I don't know. It's just one of those weird Sally moments where I'm like, okay, cool, thanks, Sally. Like,
Lee does have beautiful hair.
She does, but it just felt so weird given the awkward circumstances.
It is a weird part.
And then they reveal that, hey, we brought Miles with us.
For a booty call ?
I know, like ooh,
Dad.
It's, like, I want to know how that conversation went down. Were they like, oh, Miles, you should come with us? Or do you think he was like, oh, I better go with you?
I think Sally dragged him. I think Sally is an instigator.
Yeah, she likes to kind of get in the weeds.
She likes to control. That's my vibe I get from her.
I feel like Sally is actually mystical and she caused this whole thing.
That's
my theory.
And then Miles and Kate go out on the town. So Miles ends up taking Kate out after all of that. Miles tells Kate that he is a parkitect.
Yeah.
Which means he does like architecture for parks.
Yeah.
I did not know a parkitect was a thing.
I don't know if it's real, but it's also the name of a video game where you make roller coasters.
Really?
It's very fun.
And we find out that he designed part of a park somewhere in the city. So he didn't design an entire park. He designed like a
Poet's Corner.
Poet's Corner. Thank you. And remember that for later because that will come back.
Come on, yeah.
So Kate starts talking about Jack to Miles and he hits her. Oh, this is a good part. Kate starts talking about Jack to Miles and he hits her with a truth bomb that everything could be perfect in the relationship, but Kate is not Nancy, so it will never work.
Yeah.
Which is so true. Like you can be what the person wants. You can be everything they have written down in their book of perfect persons.
Right.
But if you're not the person they want to be with,
Then
it's
you're
never
not.
going to work.
Yeah.
And I love that part of the movie.
Yeah, it's true. He says fate. I don't know if fate's a thing, but like I understand that where it's like you can't change what a person really wants and needs. Like you can change yourself for the better and make like positive changes, but you can't change who you are and you'll never be that person. Especially in this case where it's like he already found Nancy and he knows that he loves her and he knows he's going to propose to her. So like you have to kind of just accept it.
So I think he's saying too by her, by the last few nights of her trying to persuade him and going to the jewelry store and all this trying to get in the way, it's like even if she does all that, she's still not Nancy.
Exactly.
It's never going to work.
And this is where I get a little sad because like it seems like okay, now she's realizing like Miles is a cool guy, things are starting to work with both of them. They walk into Nick's. They're going to grab a drink. She sees Toby, and Toby just smiles at her, probably because he thinks that it's Phyllis, because that's what he does every single time. And I don't know why she's weird about it, but she's like, oh, he knows something. And she literally like grabs him and chases him around the corner and then like pushes him up against a wall and is super aggressive and is like, what do you know? Why does this night keep repeating itself? And he's like, I literally don't know. And it's just such a weird thing. Like, I just feel like even at that point, she like, I don't know who would actually do that.
Yeah.
I feel like they just do it to have a moment where Miles overhears this next line where she says, I just want this night to end.
Yeah.
And it's just so cheesy. And he's like, oh, okay, fine. And he storms off again. They do a lot of storming off.
Yeah. It's always Miles. I think he storms maybe 5 or 6 times in this movie.
Yeah. And she always does something questionable or mean. But this one, it's like, you don't know the context. I hate when movies do that. I hate that like common... It's a misunderstanding. You only heard it out of context.
So Miles runs off after hearing that, and so she asks to have a drink with what's his name? Toby. The drink with Toby, who was waiting for Phyllis. So they end up having a drink together.
Yeah.
And that kind of ends that day.
Yeah.
It is another night, 11:59. And I don't think, because I didn't write this down, I didn't write I Spritz yet. I think
skips it a couple times.
I think this is one of the ones that skips it. But we'll give it to you anyway. I spritzed and you passed out. The next day kind of goes on. She actually sprints back to her apartment because she intercepts the call.
Oh yeah,
from Miles because he left a voicemail the past few days, but she actually gets to the phone.
Yeah.
And talks to him on the phone.
Like, hey, I thought you would be at work.
And I think this is the moment where he goes, "Oh, I got your email about meeting at what's it called? Nick's." And I was like, "Who fucking emails that?"
It's so casual.
I sent you an email. Did you not see it? No, because I check my email once a week.
Yeah, I check my email for work, and then my personal email is irrelevant now and probably is full of advertisements. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you and good night. Please do not email me because you will not hear from me.
You won't see it. Yeah, that's true. And then, so she like ropes Miles into picking out a tree.
Which is cute.
It's cute. She tries to do more cute things, but I feel like it's a lot of work. She makes him carry it up all the stairs because she knows the elevator is going to be broken, which is kind of a dick move. And so I'm like kind of in the middle where I'm like, is she trying to be nice now because she's in it? Or is she like also kind of bullying him and making him do work for her? Maybe it's both.
Yeah.
But it's really sweet. Like I love all her decorations. They have a little comment about like, he's like, oh, is this like a brown snowman? And it's a reindeer ornament she says she made when she was younger. And just like a little moment. It's cute.
Yeah. And so Kate brings out some apple cider And Miles is like, oh, is this spiked? And she goes, no, it's spiced. And I know it's supposed to mean like cute, like, oh, I put like cinnamon or some shit in it. But did she drug it? Does that mean Kate's drugging him?
Well, that would make a lot of sense of why she thinks she's reliving the same day.
Because isn't spice a drug?
I believe so. There's also the Spice Girls.
So, Kate is a drug dealer, I guess. I'm not really sure. Miles and Kate then go over to Kate's dad and Sally's place for dinner.
Yes, and we find out that the like cousins or someone had canceled, so it's just going to be the four of them for dinner. And she's actually a little nicer to Sally this time. Like I think Sally sets out her mom's china, and I think previous Kate would have been like, "Why are you using mom's china? Like those are special." But she is nice, and she says, "Oh, thanks, you use mom's china. That looks really pretty." And she's like, "Oh, I thought it'd make you feel more at home." So we know Sally has good intentions.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that Kate didn't freak out and was really nice to her and was like, "Okay."
But she does say something later on because Sally and the dad kiss and Kate goes, wow, you guys really do love each other, which is such a weird thing to say.
It's weird. And they even say, like, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
And I think she means it in a positive way, but it's just awkward. And then they're like, oh, you're going to go to midnight mass. And she's like, I don't know about that. And he's like, oh, you're not religious. And she's like, no, I just don't make it past midnight. But they go anyway, and they're gonna try it.
And they sit next to Mrs. Frumpkin,
yeah,
too.
She's at church. She's like, oh, that lady. She's really weird about it. She's like, that's my neighbor. Like, she's alone, and I don't want to be her. I feel like she's just assuming a lot about Frumpkin. Like, yeah, I think they try to make Frumpkin come off as really desperate, and maybe she is really desperate and lonely. But, like, also if she's making that many cherry chip loaves for people, she's probably got other people in her life. Like, she's not... Maybe she doesn't have a man, but it seems like she's got a community if she's making all these loaves.
Right. Yeah, she's got to have people.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they sit next to her. They sing, and she's nice to her neighbor again. So she's like kind of learning. But did she learn enough lessons? No, because we're about to reverse it again.
It is 11:59, and we're back at the mall.
I spread Virginia passed down.
But she doesn't get off the floor this time.
Yeah, she kind of lingers for a minute. And she's like really upset about it. I think this time she's mad because things did go well the night before. And so she thought, okay, things went well. So this time it must like break the curse or the spell or whatever's going on here. And everything should go back to normal. It doesn't. And so she's mad. And this time instead of like, it kind of makes me mad because she's starting to learn her lesson. And then she kind of takes a step back where she's like, I'm so mad. And she's upset. The guy's like, you need to get off the floor. And she's like, I get it. I'm irrelevant. I don't matter. And she has like a breakdown. And Jim... the old guy is so nice to her, and he's like, hey, like, let's talk, like, let's see what's going on. And she says, my life is a parking garage.
Just going around and around in circles. And he's like, yeah,
he just like listens. He's like just a nice listener. He doesn't say she's crazy. He just is like, that's really hard. He's like, here's what I do when I need to feel better. And he takes her to this like greenhouse space. There's like a atrium that they walk through.
Is it like a bird thing?
Yeah, there's like birds and lots of tropical plants. So in New York, so it's somewhere where they're able to keep it warm and like have all these really pretty,
humid,
there's really cool trees and stuff. And this is where we see the 6 geese because they're like geese hats on these kids that walk by. And they're really goofy looking. But I think it's really sweet that he takes her there. It's like a nice, like, you know, it's a special place for him. And so it's cool for him to be like, hey, I just want to share this with you.
Yeah.
And then he kind of gives her the advice. She's like, well, if you were living every day over and over again, what would you do? And he's like, I would just like blow all my cash and like not really care, like kind of just like live life to the fullest.
So she does.
Yeah, she buys a fancy car. She is nice. She does one nice thing where she gives her coat, like she buys this super fancy coat and just gives it to a homeless person. And she's like, here, have this.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of throwing her money around. That was kind of the only nice thing though. Then it's all for her because she gets a fancy car. She doesn't care about the parking ticket. She dyes her hair, which is a really weird wig that they put on her. A very obvious wig that they put on her.
A tattoo.
And a tattoo. And then she meets up with the gals, Lee, Miyoko, and Frumpkin in Frumpkin's kitchen, and they're all learning how to bake this time. But I think this time they're doing cookies.
Yeah, they're decorating cookies. And this is the part that made me upset because Miyoko is sad because she doesn't really have a man or woman or a person in her life. While Kate and Lee are complaining because Kate's like, oh, I've dated this man for 2 years and we didn't get engaged. And Lee's like, oh, this man does all these nice things for me and this is not what I want. And so I put sidebar. I'm going to read this verbatim. Lee has a cute man who's willing to hang lights for her every year and she complains about it. I feel like Andrew, who is my boyfriend, doing that every year would stress him out.
It would. He'd be like, this needs to be right. It's got to be good.
If
He'd be worried about when you're gonna walk by and see it. Oh my god.
Andrew, I love you, but I'm going to out you right now. Andrew's my boyfriend. He's a very stressed out person, and he just gets stressed out very anxious
Yeah.
really easily. But so I feel like this amount of work of like hanging up lights and doing all this stuff would stress him out. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I would be so obsessed with it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it's
I'd
really
be
cute.
it would be so cute. But Leah's
Drew,
sitting
if
here
you ever need
complaining.
to do a surprise for Amy, you know you can reach out to me and I will help you.
He has an
it'll be
experience.
fine.
You lived in a suburb. You know how to put up lights. But yeah. So anyway, it kind of pissed me off because it's like Lee has this really nice guy who seems like
He seems really nice.
really, really nice, doing this really nice thing that takes hours and hours and hours of work, and is complaining about it. So that pissed me off, and that made me upset. And so Kate completes decorating her cookies, and she holds them up, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, those are amazing! How do you learn how to do that?" And she was like, "Oh, YouTube." And they're fine cookies, but she just like made like a snowman and a snowflake, and I'm like, those are pretty.
Yeah, they're like cool,
basic.
but they're not like. I mean, I could do it too.
Yeah,
I'm throwing shade at you, Kate. Katie.
And then they're baking until 11:59. Yeah,
they're baking till midnight. Everyone stays up till midnight in this movie, and I don't understand it, except for the one kid who falls asleep at the end. But other than that, everyone is up until midnight every Christmas Eve, and like, I am sorry, but I would be in bed.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid, it was because I wanted to go to sleep because of Santa, and now it's because I drink on Christmas Eve. And I'm tired.
Go to bed. And I want to make sure I can wake up tomorrow and be okay.
Yeah. So that's you kind of hit one, you get up to one and then you kind of turn on to the other. So it's either like, oh, I was a kid, and then, oh, I'm drinking.
Yep.
So it's kind of like.
I got to go to bed. Either way.
There's never
not
been
at
a
midnight.
point where I'm like, I could stay up. I don't like staying up to midnight.
Oh, when I was a kid,
anyway.
I stayed up though.
Really?
Everyone was like, you need to go to
no.
bed, but I was too excited. I couldn't control it. I was like,
Because-
I'm going to be up and I'm just going to look out my bedroom window downstairs to look at the presents, see if they're there yet that Santa brought, and I would check.
I think
I am surprised that
You didn't get coal?
Yeah, honestly. I should have. Probably several years. One time I peeked at my Christmas presents too.
Sam.
Sorry, Mom.
Santa's not coming this year. Yeah, so it's 11:59 again. I spritz you and you passed out. We wake up.
And then we see 7 ice swans because she immediately goes to outside to see the light guy.
Mm-hmm. She decided to stop and help the light guy. He's all like tangled up. So she's like, oh, let me help you. And this is a cute montage of them untangling each other and all of that. And then she asks if he has any extra lights. He says yes, gives her some lights, and she runs home to answer Miles's call.
Yeah, I wrote down that this feels like a side quest in a video game where it's like, interact with light guy and help him to then obtain lights. Like, do the task, get the gift so you can do the other task later.
Yeah.
Isn't that
totally? That is absolutely
It's the side quest. This is where we find out, because she meets him, he says to meet her at the rink, right? Yeah. So Kate meets Miles at where he is coaching. We find out that he's a coach and he coaches kids once a week.
Yeah.
They're foster kids because of course they are. It's a cheesy hokey movie and they need to be like, you have a dead wife and you help out foster children.
Yep.
It's great that he does those things, but it seems quite convenient.
Yes. Quite a convenient thing to have a dead wife and you're also like a good person. It seems weird.
Yeah.
And so Miles is like, I'm going to go shower. I'm going to clean up. So you just, hang out. There's some, there is a snack shack over there with some like decent coffee. Go ahead and like get some coffee. And so while she's waiting for him, she's kind of like staring at this case and there's this like a picture of a kid and Miles.
Yeah.
We don't know who the kid is, but there's like a young kid, probably like, I don't know, 16.
Yeah.
And then I think he's a little weird, but this other random kid who's probably like also I think all the kids are around the same age, like 16, 17, comes up and is like, hey, that's Michael. And just like kind of like, it seems really like
we need this
forced.
information for the story.
Exactly.
And that's all it is.
Exactly. I'm going to help move along the storyline, and then I'm going to also leave.
I'm going to sing a song to move the story forward.
So that's how it felt for that part.
Yeah, he says, like, that's our captain. He ran away.
Right, Michael.
Like, he gives you, like, all these details, and you're like, she's like, I didn't ask. But anyway. And then he also says this line where he's like, yeah, the coach is a really good guy. If you hurt him, we'll kill you. I don't know. I feel like mom will say that in like a movie where the boyfriend, like she meets the boyfriend or something, and it's kind of cheeky. But here, it comes off as like actually really creepy because he just says it so flat. He's like, yeah, we'll kill you.
Like, you actually might kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miles comes out with some like ice skates, and they end up going skating for their date at this local hockey rink. And seems like she's kind of doing bad at first. She's, doing the whole rigmarole where she's like, oh, I can't stand up, and I can't find my feet. And then she actually goes off and starts skating, and she's actually pretty good.
Yeah, she does like crazy turns and stuff, but you can totally tell it's just like a stunt double.
Bad.
Like it's
bad.
very obvious. They never show her face, and you're like, oh, and she like does all this stuff, and then they pan back to her when she puts her hands on her hips, and she's like, oh, and he's like, I thought you never could have, like, you didn't know how to skate, and she's like, oh, I just said it's been a while, and she used to be like a champion or something crazy.
Tri-City Junior champion in skating, so she's like pretty decent, but I think she also lost some of that skill, so there's some realness to her not being that good anymore, but it was just an interesting scene. They go on a walk after this skating date, and they actually end up at the park that Miles designed.
Yeah, which is by design because Kate planned it.
Good one. Surprise! She put lights on the tree behind it, so it kind of lights the whole thing up.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how much work.
Oh my gosh, I
that
just kind of don't believe that she did, because it goes way up in the tree branches, and like also the amount of lights that she got from that guy is not the amount of lights in that tree. There are way more lights in that tree than she obtained from Christmas Light Guy.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of issues there. But anyway, they have a moment. It's really sweet that she thought of him and did that, and I think he thought it was really special. And then she like reads the little quote that Henry David Thoreau quote that's like, our realist life is in dreams awake.
They almost kiss, but the clock chimes midnight. And shocker, we're back at the mall. I spritzed you, and you passed out.
But this time she says, damn it. And I was like, oh my God, ABC Family has now used the word bitch and damn it in the same movie.
Whoa. You
Yikes.
guys, that's crazy. So she goes to find Jack at the jewelry store again, like she had done the day before, and tells him how fine she is with marrying Nancy. And then Jack doesn't buy a ring.
Right.
And asks Kate to go to get coffee.
He's like, oh, you're being really cool. Let's like catch up and see how life
Yeah.
is. So they go get coffee, which is where we get the 8 maids are milking, because on the mantle in the coffee shop, there are 8 bottles of milk with little like milkmaids on them. And I thought that was really cute.
That is really cute.
And it fits the setting.
I'm so happy that
shop.
you're able to track all of these, because I've totally spaced on writing them all
I remember
down.
some of them, and I tried to write some of them
So thank
down,
God for that. Jack actually tells Kate that he was going to propose until her mom died, because I guess she kind of became obsessed with either Jack or the idea of marriage, and was just really kind of not okay. And I think it's probably a good thing to not propose to someone when they're like in that state.
Yeah. And she even says to him, she admits, she's like, I really only like the first 6 months of our relationship. But then, like, I just had a plan, and I wanted everything to go to my plan. And so I thought, if we just try harder and we stick it out, it'll be fine. And then her mom dies, and she's like, I just don't want to be alone, so let's get married.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And he was going to propose, we find out, to her. And then he didn't, because he was like, that's not the right time. So,
which I agree with.
I think it's smart. Yeah. And like, obviously it worked out for the better, because now he has Nancy. She may have Miles.
We don't know.
It might take Miles to get there, but I think she will.
Whoa. Yeah, and so it basically kind of ends up with like, Jack felt like she was kind of more into the idea of love than in the idea of him.
Yeah, which I think is accurate.
And that happens a lot. I mean, I think people can become obsessed with the idea of just love in general and not just like a specific person.
Right.
Kate and Miles are at Sally and her dad's for dinner again.
Yeah, we're really going through the day quickly now, which I appreciate because we don't need to see the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah. At some point, you're like, what, are we going to keep going? Like, let's...
When do we get there? So we skip to the evening.
Yeah, we skip to the evening. It's time for dessert. They just have eaten dinner. There's some jokes going on. Sally's cracking the jokes.
Oh my gosh, she says, like, Santa Claus gets stuck in a chimney. Santa claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Girl, okay.
Sally, all right.
And then Kate like laughs along and is trying to be nice, and I was like, okay, now you're just being disingenuous, but whatever. And Kate brings in a huge gingerbread house with like a bunch of desserts surrounding it.
Like she spent a lot of time making that.
And she says she used YouTube again.
Yeah. She's a YouTube queen at this point.
If you don't know how to bake, go to YouTube, obviously.
Sally and Miles end up going into the kitchen to do some dishes, and then Dad and Kate have a talk again, and Dad asks Kate if she is into Miles. She says yes. She's like, oh yeah, I'm into him. And then Kate comes to the realization that Jack did not actually buy a ring.
Right.
When he was at the jewelry store. And so now she becomes kind of obsessed with the idea of that he is not going to propose to Nancy now.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, then like fate doesn't happen, and like she thinks like that's the one of the missing puzzle pieces that she needs to go right. In her opinion, that's it going right. For things to work out so she can move on to the next day, or so she thinks. So she leaves the party, tries to explain it to Miles, and she does not do a good job of explaining it. She just is like, I have to make it right because that'll fix everything.
And she also says like, oh yeah, I think I'm falling in love with you. And Miles is like, whoa. We've known each other for like a few hours. And she was like, no, we've known each other for 8 days or whatever. And he's like, oh my God, she's like, I might be falling in love with you. And he's like, no.
So then she goes, but she's still determined to fulfill her quest. So she drives up to this cabin where Jack is supposed to propose to Nancy, but she's like, oh, he must not have. He doesn't have the ring. She breaks in and just barges in on them. They're like, Nancy's like, who is this? I've never met this person.
She barges in and goes, you need to propose to her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? What if it's a surprise? You're not supposed to just like...
It's horrible.
Announce it.
And he's like, I already did.
Like an hour ago.
Yeah. And she's like, you didn't buy the ring. He's like, what are you, the engagement police? And it's like a whole thing. And she's like, oh, I guess I didn't really need to like change things. Maybe the point of fate was like, I needed to leave this as it was.
Yeah.
Duh, Kate. It's not about Jack anymore. Get over it. And they're like, oh, I'll drive you back in the morning. And she's like, oh, I wish that was true.
If you only knew.
11:59.
11:59 hits.
And then we cut. Luckily, we're getting to the fast forward portion.
Yeah.
It jumps to the bar. 9 ladies conga lining in the bar.
Yep. She's getting drunk. She doesn't care. She's like, I can drink. She's telling the bartender, I can drink as much as I want and not get hungover tomorrow. It's fucking great. This is going to be the best day. She's just drinking to be sad. And then Toby, who's supposed to meet with Phyllis, the guy who's kind of there every time she goes to the bar, comes up and talks to her.
He's 2 hours early.
She's so, like, I feel like she's so rude to him.
Yeah, oh my gosh. This is when she goes off.
She's like, yeah, Phyllis is not going to come. You're Toby, you're 32. You live alone with your cat and your bird. And she's just like going off on him.
Yeah.
And he's just like sitting there all shocked. And then he ends up sitting down with her and they start drinking together.
Yeah, she brings him down. She pulls him down with her.
Yeah.
Jerk. She goes home. She's mean to her neighbor again at the door. And she gets all grumpy, but she does kind of have a moment where she's like, okay, no. I need to do better. And so she goes back out and she meets up, or she talks to her neighbor before she's going out to midnight mass.
Yeah.
Because she knows she's going to go there. And she has a little conversation with her. And she apologizes, which I thought was really sweet that she took the time to apologize.
Yeah, she went out. She's like, I've just been rude to everyone today. I'm so sorry. Miss Frumpkin's like, we all have our bad days.
She's so understanding.
She's so understanding.
Goes to bed, 11:59. Start over.
Yep, day 10. Day 10. We're a couple more days left.
We're almost there. We almost did it.
And she goes to find the light guy. And she actually hands him a sketch and says, I have a really good idea if you want to switch things up. Hands that to him. And then she's like kind of helping him and then sees Michael, who's the guy who ran away from the shelter.
Yeah.
Which, is it like a homeless shelter?
I think they say it's foster kids or like foster program or
so that program
or a home or a I'm not quite sure. Like, they don't really quite specify.
Yeah.
But
So the kids from the program, the foster program, then go and play hockey. And that's kind of like an extra thing that they do.
yeah. So she sees the captain and she's like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, there he is. I'm going to go. She's like, so she runs off. But luckily she left the design for the light guy, so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
She stopped helping, which is kind of lame, but she follows the guy because she's like, I need to find him and convince him to go back to the house and go play hockey and like be happy and not run away, because that's sad. We don't need a 16-year-old living by himself on the streets. So she tries to follow him, but then there's like this, like, it's down an alley and there's a bunch of like junk. Honestly, the junk doesn't look that high, so it's kind of funny that like he like dodges her by leaping, and his number is 10. So 10 lords are leaping, and their hockey team name is the Lords. So a little perfect there.
It's a little clever. I'll give it to him. It's a little clever.
I like it. But he jumps over this like pile of stuff, and she's like, oh yeah. And she's like, let's try that again. And so this is the only time we get like a quick, literally skips to the next day.
The frame turns.
We're on, yeah. And so for 11, it's the Pied Piper pizza
Mm-hmm.
on the car. And so this time she's like had made a divide in that alleyway so she could walk through and talk to him. And
Yeah.
so she approaches the kid with that she finds out has a puppy.
Mm-hmm. And he's
that's
feeding the
why.
dog with like a canned
It's so
dog
cute,
food,
little
and
baby.
she goes, oh, the shelter won't let you have a dog, and he was like, yeah, and so that's why he ran away, was to help the dog. And so Michael is back at the hockey rink because Kate said that he could keep the dog. Miles is like, no, you can't keep the dog. The shelter won't let you keep the dog. There's no way.
Yeah.
And so Kate is like, just let him keep him for the night, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, we'll figure it out. And he was like, just go back. The cops have been called. Michael, you have to go back to the shelter, bring the dog.
Yeah.
And then Kate stops Michael on the way out and is like, our plan is working. As soon as the dog gets in the shelter, he is not coming out. Which is so true, because everyone's going to fall in love with the dog.
It's such a cute little puppy.
It really is.
Cute.
Max is also a cute little guy,
Max
too.
is so sweet.
Kate tells Miles to blow off his blind date, which he doesn't know that it's her, to go out with her. Then they're walking together, so they're on a date. Miles gives her her coat, which is his coat, which is just kind of like her wet dream at this point.
Yeah, she loves a coat.
Just what she wanted all along.
They're out together, and it all ends. And
they don't kiss. I think the kiss is
the kiss is important. Yeah, they need to kiss.
So she's spritzed and she passes out for the last time.
But this time she has like a new spark. She's like, today's going to be the best day.
Woo!
She doesn't actually know that it's the last one. She's just like, okay, you know what? Today's going to be the best day. And so this is where she plans to make every interaction with all these people that she's met this journey on, that she's going to like make everything go right this time. So the first thing she does, first of all, 12 nutcrackers that are drumming. They're 12 drummers drumming. And we're doing a Toby makeover.
Toby makeover. Love it.
Which is like nice. She buys them a lot of nice clothes. I assume she buys them. I hope so, because it looks expensive.
Yeah.
She makes him take off his glasses, and then they like do his hair. And I'm gonna say this: I don't like his hair. I think it looks not as good, even when it's like messy. And I guess that was in at the time, but it doesn't. I feel like he could look cute, but it's just not the style for me.
I also hate, this is just a personal thing, I hate the stereotype, but if they take the glasses off, the person gets more attractive, because I think I'm the opposite, where I like myself with glasses more. I'm just saying, they take the glasses off and everyone's like, oh my god, he's so much. That's an every movie thing.
Audience, I have them off today, and last time I had them on. So
and I will never have them off. So, yeah, let him know.
I think glasses are cute.
She brings Mrs. Frumpkin to meet Jim for a date at the sanctuary, because she also lived in Mexico. He lived in Mexico. They hit it off right away.
Yeah, she's like, the jade vines. And he's like, oh.
They hit it off. It's really cute. She, one last time, tells Jack how happy she is for him and Nancy.
They're packing for the cabin. I wrote that she speed runs the Jack conversation, because she literally is like, I want you to have all the happiness in the world. And she just goes.
And then Nancy's like, who the fuck was that?
Yeah, like, it's just in and out. And I'm like, thank you. You finally understood that you can also do these things quickly.
The light guy has the lights for Lee all set up, and the lights ask her to marry him.
And it's really cute. And
very
she says,
cute.
Yes.
Yeah, so cute. She goes to the bar to meet Miles.
She sets up Miyoko with Toby.
Who's waiting for Phyllis.
I don't know Toby. Hopefully he's great. I just think Miyoko is beautiful and deserves whatever she wants.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as we know, Toby's a good guy. He just kind of got the shit
And he
end
has
of
a
the
cat,
stick.
so.
And a bird.
Yeah. He's got to figure it out.
And then Kate goes off to sit with Miles like normal. They hit it off right away. And then she asks him for a favor.
Mm-hmm.
And then cut to a lot of people at Kate's dad's house and Sally's house.
Yeah, literally the entire hockey team.
The entire cast of the movie.
Yeah, everyone is there.
Everyone is there.
Frumpkin, Jim, Miyoko, Toby.
The light guy, Lee.
Yeah, the light guy, Lee. And then the family that didn't show up before because he's like, oh, your cousin or your aunt and her kids, because there's like little kids there now. Here's the thing that I don't understand, and we need to take a moment here.
Okay.
Max is at this party, but on this particular day, this rerun of this day that she's lived so many times, she does not meet with Jack to exchange the dog. So I don't know how Max gets to the party, but maybe he got a voicemail on his phone and just knew to be there.
How does she get Max on the other days that she just meets up with him at the jewelry store?
I don't know. They have to have that interaction.
I did not think about that.
It's a plot hole.
I never made that connection because she always is sleeping with Max in the bed.
At the end of the movie. Yeah. There's some nights where she isn't, so I guess
God.
those ones.
You cracked the code.
I cracked the code. And then one of the things is anyone who watches this movie, if you go back and you watch this movie, please do, because one, it's great. I love it. I know it's cheesy, but I love this movie.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Her dad and Sally are sitting with like one of the kids, like his grandson or nephew or something, and the kid looks so uncomfortable. He is so awkward and straight faced, and just like you can tell this kid is like, I'm not a child actor. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I'm just a friend of the camera guy, and he told me I'm going to play a kid in this movie. And
he's like the son of the director.
Yeah, like
or
he's
something.
just awkward and does not belong, and he just looks so uncomfortable. And then like a couple minutes later, they cut to him and he's passed out. So he probably got spritz.
He's
too.
fine. Yeah, he got spritz and he passed out. Cute Christmas party montage. They just kind of go around. Everyone's happy. Everyone's jolly except for the kid.
Yeah.
Kate tells dad that she is leaving and how much she misses her mom. And then Sally makes an announcement.
Oh, yeah.
But does she actually say the things that are supposed to be coming out of her mouth?
No. I forgot about that.
Because it kind of cuts to, so it's kind of one of those moments where it cuts to the actress, and I'm sure they just did like an audio, like,
just a voiceover.
voiceover.
Yeah.
But then the actress herself is just not saying, it's supposed to be like, come on, everybody, let's sing a song. And it does not line up
with her mouth. She's like,
at all.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's so funny that it's just like, it's so obvious too. It's not like one of those things where like the stunt double where they probably got away with it for most people. Yeah. And then of course, can we guess the song that they sing all together?
Oh my gosh.
The 12 Days of Christmas, which is, I agree with it, with Kate and Miles at the end. They say that it is one of the worst Christmas songs. It is like the Christmas version of
100 bottles of beer
on the wall.
It's true.
I agree with that.
There's a little more to it. I think if you sing the song, just start at 12 and do the countdown and call it good.
Yeah, so Kate, they're leaving, and they end up going out when they're singing the 12 Days of Christmas. Kate and Miles go outside. They have a cute moment, and they kiss. It's pretty much happily ever after at that point.
She makes it past midnight.
Yeah, the clock strikes, and Miles goes, Merry Christmas. And she was like, what? He was like, it's Christmas. And she was like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And Miles is like, I'm happy that you are. Cue Michael Bublé.
I love that song. Cold December Night is a bop.
Cold December. Dun, 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 dun. And it's really cute. Kate tells Miles that they will just take everything one day at a time. They kiss again, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. I like that. I do like that the lesson for her to learn isn't necessarily like, oh, I need to just like win the guy and make things work out with me and him for things to go back to normal.
Right.
She needs to make things right with everyone in her life and be better and to just be nice to the people she sees every day.
Yeah.
Like she learned a lot from not just her relationship with Miles, but her relationship with Sally, her relationship with Lee, Miyoko, all these people.
Mrs. Frumpkin.
So I do like that. Yeah, like that it's not just about, it is a Christmas movie after all, so it has to be about family and friends. But I like that all works. And I also like that all these people happen to be free on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Well, that has been 12 Dates of Christmas. This is a tradition at this point. I think this is probably like year 5 of watching it since we've been friends. I think we've watched it like every year. And it is definitely one of our favorites. I think we're going to try to do Christmas Prince, which, if you don't know, that's like a Netflix series of movies. There's like 3 movies, which is another pretty cheesy one. So we're going to try to do that. You know, the holidays get kind of busy, so we're not promising anything.
Right, but we will try.
It's really fun to do. We've been having a lot of fun doing this. I hope everyone who's listening is also enjoying it. I know we have
if you're not, then go away.
And I know we have some friends and some family who listen to us, and I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
The support has been awesome from the Halloween Town. I have a couple coworkers who listen. Some of our little theater friends listen.
They were so nice.
And I know some of our family, our moms probably have listened to it. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody. And we hope we put one out here soon.
Yeah. So we're bad at watching movies.
Yeah.
We're not getting any better.
We're starting to post more on TikTok and Instagram, Bad at Watching Movies. You can follow us there.
If you're watching this, then you already know that we have it on YouTube as well. But if that's your preference of how you want to, you can view us and see us talking. If you're just listening to this on audio, we're pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts.
Yeah.
So wherever you're listening, you found us. But also know that we're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We're on Podbean. We're on iHeart. Most of them we are on.
Mm-hmm. And if there's something that maybe we're not on and you guys want us to be on, you know, we're open to suggestions. Other than that, that has been the 12 Dates of Christmas. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening.
Yes.
See you later.
Bye.
Okay.
That guy is such a wiener. Are you kidding me?
Are we bad at watching movies?
Woohoo, party.